being here. My name is Bull Weber. I'm Director of Sales at Lingotek. Joe Wood, Director of Solutions Engineering. Here to talk about how easy it is to translate inside Drupal. Quick agenda, introduce you to us a little bit. Talk some about, hopefully some heads will be nodding about the challenges associated with translating content currently with what's currently available in core. Talk about something that can layer on top of that internationalization suite, make it a lot easier. And then Joe's going to provide a quick tour of the platform, including the installation, some configuration of various translation workflows. A couple of case studies and Q&A, so it's a pretty straightforward presentation, and we'll look forward to the Q&A the most. Quick background, we're a software company from Utah, about 7 years old. Our focus is a cloud-based translation management system. Lives up in the sky. It connects into Drupal via our contrib module, which is called Lingotek Translation. We also have a professional services group that does professional translation in addition to some of the other things that the system facilitates, which are principally machine translation, which is appropriate in some cases, not too many, but also the ability to set up workflows so that internal people that you or your client may have available that can do translation can be brought into the workflows, get a link in an email, spin up, log into a platform, and do the translation, all within this sort of translation workflow cycle that gets facilitated between the Drupal instance and our system up in the cloud. A couple of our clients, a lot of software companies, other types of companies. That probably shouldn't even be there. It's kind of from a sales presentation. But here's basically the problem that we solve. These days, websites content changes very rapidly. They're very dynamic. Tremendous amount of churn in most cases, not every case, but certainly most cases. And the legacy processes for managing that have really become antiquated. 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, process for keeping multilingual sites in sync involved recognizing when there was new content or content that had changed. Web admin would identify that and copy and paste the content that needed to be translated into a Word document or a bunch of Word documents. You'd FTP that up to a translation agency. A couple of weeks would go by, you'd have no visibility into what was going on with the translation, what their status was. Then they'd all come back. Then you'd have to manually reinsert them into the website, maybe even take them through some internal review process. So a lot of manual steps in that process made it so that it just wasn't fast enough to keep up as we move forward in time to today's situation where the content is just so much more agile and so much more fast moving. So the legacy process, if you think about it, looked something like this. All of these steps are part of the process. If you think about it, these are all administrative steps that really have nothing at all to do with translation. Translation happens here, but only after new pages, edited pages, downloaded pages, exported files, emailed out. This whole process can take weeks and weeks to execute. And the only part that the translation agency is doing is that one box over there, third from the right on the top. The actual translating is happening relatively efficiently, in this case, professional translation. All the other steps are administrative steps that just take too long. And when you begin to multiply that process times the number of steps and the number of languages you're translating into, the number of pages that you're translating, words per page, people involved, steps in the process, which, there are some variance in that basic process. Multiple times, you can see that the cycles that are required, almost nobody is staffed up adequately to support that. Just don't have the man hours available to keep up with the pace and the volume of change. The reason for that is there are too many manual steps in the process, right? There's just not enough automation. And that's the problem that Lingotek solves. We provide a flexible, automated solution that automates all of those macro steps, all of those manual steps in the process. Don't have to give up any control, don't have to give up any quality, because where people need to be translating is unchanged. But the process of identifying what needs to be translated, getting it in front of the right people, and then once they're finished, getting it back down through an approval process and back into the website is considerably accelerated. And this is a good way to really think of it. Website up in Drupal, content changes or new content gets added, immediately that kicks off whatever workflow the client has configured within our module. So the content gets pushed up to the cloud. It can get translated professionally. It can be translated by internal people. In some cases, machine translation is okay. Things like website comments, customer knowledge bases, things like that, where by definition it's content that's coming from external website visitors. Then you can use machine translation. But usually, some type of human translation is really what's appropriate. Not always the case when it's data, but in the case of nuanced things like marketing language, technical documentation, people do it. So as soon as it's finished, automatically downloaded into the CMS content management environment. When you install our module, essentially in that environment, there's a new button there that's just translations. Gets incorporated into the existing content management or editorial workflow process. Our module plays very well with Workbench moderation, which a lot of folks probably use. You simply add a step in that process where there's new content, needs review, even in English, gets approved, then it goes to translation, comes back having been translated, then it gets put in the pre-production environment and then ultimately published. But the steps are considerably automated. I kind of got ahead of myself a minute ago talking about the different types of content and what workflows are appropriate, but this sort of illustrates the fact that in the case of most websites, it's usually a combination of translation workflows that are appropriate. You wouldn't want a machine or professionally translate everything, because that would be wildly expensive and you'd be paying good money to translate really simple things. You want to take advantage of whatever internal resources you have, bilingual people that work in your office, or if the client has people, it's a big multinational and they have offices all over the world, there may be people in those offices who can help them translate content. So if you can put a workflow process in place where something gets added and it needs to be on the iteration of the site that's in Italian, a guy there in the office who's been designated to handle that gets an email, it has a link, he hits the link, it spins up this platform where you can see the source content on one side, he's got a window to type in the translation, he saves it, and it immediately gets pushed back down to the content manager. And of course, you would rarely machine translate an entire website. We've all read, I think it's safe to say that when you're reading machine translation, you can generally tell. So it's fine for something like, website comments, for the site's deployed in 10 languages. People comment, it's kind of cool to have it automatically in real time translate all the comments into all the other languages, because it sort of facilitates a sort of a global conversation. There isn't as much of a premium on quality as there is on just facilitating the good exchange of ideas. So, getting back to our boxes, the essential concept here is that we're automating the admin, the human sort of administrative manual steps of translation. And that's what this depicts, is that on the Drupal side, that it's turning all of those blue, which means, I realize it's not entirely intuitive, but that means that they've now been automated. And then the web admin pieces are being taken care of by the system up in the cloud. So at the end of the day, all of the non-translation steps are occurring automatically. And there are lots of controls. For example, when new content is added, you can automatically kick off the translation process that that the administrator has established, or it can just simply be there in the base dashboard that says this is out of sync, and they can then manually do that. Some folks like to do that because, in the case of professional translation, that incurs some cost. So if it's happening automatically, somebody writes a really long article and publishes it, you wouldn't want it to not necessarily would want it to generate an expensive professional translation automatically. But to the maximum extent that is possible and desired by each client, they can really, really streamline the workload that's required to keep everything translated without sacrificing any quality whatsoever. So that's the high-level sort of conceptual overview of what it is we do, what the key concepts are. I'm going to turn things over to Joe. He's going to walk through a quick and sort of simple explanation of the installation process, and then 2 or 3 workflows, I'm going to say. And then we'll look at a couple case studies and wrap things up.
Thanks much. So, the Lingotek platform, or the Lingotek module is right out on Drupal.org. The project's Lingotek. So we're going to go through real quick how to do the install of the module and enable it. Out of the box, it provides free machine translation for unlimited languages. So it's a good starting block for a lot of companies, and it gives you a growth path to do professional translation in the community reviews. We'll see that. So we'll configure it real quick, do a quick churn of machine translation, and then we'll see how the website looks in both Spanish and English. So, like I say, it's on Drupal.org. You just grab the latest and greatest. I think we're actually on 406 now. It was just released a week ago, and that's what actually allowed us to do full FT for multiple languages. It used to be one language. Going over to Drupal, when you enable us, we have a lot of dependencies because we're a layer on top of the internationalization suite. So basically, you have to pop in all the internationalization suite, and then we read the database entries from that point. So after all that's enabled, we read all the strings, and we're going in as well and changing all the titles to field title, so we can do translation. Because out of the box, Drupal doesn't allow you to translate the titles. And then you click on the little translation button up here, and it gives you our wizard. So we've tried to make it real easy to get translation up and running on your site. So we give you this little wizard. Tell us a little bit about yourself, so we can create your account on our SaaS-based product. And then we ask you what your source language is. So here is English, but it could be anything if you have clients or if you have websites that are international. And then we give you the option to put a language switcher. So a lot of times you just have to go dig in for where the language switcher is and put that block up. But we'll do that for you. And then we ask you about your what do you want to translate and how do you want to translate. So in this particular screenshot, it doesn't have the node translation, but the new module has field and node translation, so you can pick one or the other. And you can actually pick it per content type later in the advanced configuration. So, and you'll notice that we show you all the fields available for your content type, so you can select what you want translated for each content type, which is quite nice. Once you do that, we go through and catalog all the content you currently have on your site. And then we ask you, do you want to do translation of comments? So this is straight machine translation of comments that happen instantly when somebody posts a comment. We also touch other components of the international suite, just not content. So we go down into built-in interfaces, so if you have custom modules and the like, anything basically wrapped in a T, we'll suck in and do a translation on. We'll do blocks, taxonomies, views, etc. So all this gets bundled up, and now it's ready to go over to our site. So we need to find out what language you want it to translate in. So we're going to pick Spanish with a focus on Mexican Spanish, so more for the U.S. Kind of California West Coast market and in Texas. Once we select that, it brings us over and it starts the process. So we say, yeah, we have a few nodes we want to bring up. We have some text from modules and so forth we want to send up. That moves it all to the cloud. And then once that process is complete, we resync again. We see that everything's ready to be downloaded. We click download, and now we see on our dashboard that our site's 100% translated. So, and here's the English, and here's the Spanish. So you can see with pretty minimal effort, we're moving content from Drupal to our translation management system. In this example, getting a machine translated and pushed back. Now, if anybody's tried to do that without our module, there's been a lot of copying and pasting involved. So we try to eliminate a lot of that. So let's look at a more advanced workflow than just machine translation. Say you have people in your organization or your client's organization that are bilingual. This happens a lot, especially in the US and in Europe. So let's make them part of that process. Let's get them to be reviewers of professional content. Let's get them to be post editors of machine content. In this example, we're doing machine translation first, and then having those internal people doing the post edit. So we're doing this at the node level. So you can pick a different workflow for the content type in each individual node. We'll see how our translation management system works for alerting people that there's something to be done in the organization. And then again, having it downloaded back into Drupal without a lot of copying, or without any copying and pasting. So first we go in and we create a node here. And then going down, we have a bunch of different options. So we're picking here that we want to change the workflow to an internal translation workflow, and this maps to a workflow in our translation management system. So once we save that, now we see it popping up in our translation management system. This is a view of that. It's this node right here. We see that nothing's been done with it yet. So project manager can go and assign that to an individual. And this is how that works. They click on that object, they assign it, and then an email will go out to that person. And these steps can be automated as well. You can create groups of people. So if you have a bilingual staff of Spanish speakers for the PR department or something, you can put those all in a group and they'd all get the email saying, somebody go set this. And here's I apologize, these slides got out of sync. So here's the email that they would get. So basically saying, hey, there's something to be translated, go help us. And then they click on the link and it goes to this workbench. So in the workbench, there's a whole bunch of tools that the translator can use. So you have formatting matches, which is looking back at what you've previously translated within the system to see if there's something close to what the new content is. So this helps a lot when you're doing modifications of existing articles, or if you're doing kind of a copy-paste of an article you've done before, or you have a block at the end, like for press releases and things like that. You can also use suggestions from machine translators if they're not pre-populated to kind of give you a head start on doing the translations. So they just go through sentence by sentence doing the translation. Once that's done, they close out of it. The project manager can see that that's now 100%, and our tool, and also within Drupal. So we always give you the status of where translation is in the process within Drupal. So there's no longer a black box that you send your stuff to. You always know where the content is at any point in time, which is nice, especially when you have a big project and you got a deadline to meet. So we download that article, and now we can see this is the English. We click here, download, and now we have the Spanish version. So again, no copying, no pasting. It's all done through the module to our translation management system. So the last workflow I want to show you is how you'd send something over for professional translation. It's very similar to that. Just our professionals are using the workbench and tailoring that message in a professional setting. So we'll select the profile, we'll monitor the progress, and then we'll upload the new content. So here's just an article for the Nexus 7 that was on the Newswire. We select here the translation profile of professional, and we get a little message, the article's created, and it's been sent over to Lingotek. Now from a web admin point of view, they can look here to see that, where it is in the process. So this is I probably should have taken a screenshot of a little more than just 100%, but normally you'd see, the translation process is 57% done for Spanish, 20% for French on the first day or so, and then it gradually moves up as the project finishes, so you can see all that in real time. And then from our dashboard, you can see a site as a whole, right? So you can see at a glance that my website is, 67? Sorry, my screen's really small. 67% translated for all those languages. So there's a delta there. And if we go to the next tab, which is the Manage tab, we color code where everything is. So red being something's in progress, and it's not synced currently. Green, which we'll see, is that there's stuff on our TMS server that is ready to be downloaded into Drupal. And then a blue, which there's other two articles, which means everything's good, we're synced. So you can go to this page and a real quick glance, see where everything is. And this is really important if you think about if somebody else is adding or changing content to a website that's different than the person responsible for keeping the website up to date. They don't always talk to each other, and this is a great way of taking a quick glance. They'll see that in the previous screen where it was showing that the site was 67% complete, they can jump over here and see, okay, what's out of sync and how do I fix that? So we can click the little red sync, and that goes to our server, gets the latest status, and changes our boxes to green, indicating that there's something for download. We click the little down arrow in the cloud, and now everything's blue. So that's kind of an example of how we manage things from our workbench, our dashboard rather. So now here's the English article. Now it's in Chinese, I think that's French, and Spanish. So you can see how easy this process could be for multiple languages, whereas before it'd be a lot of finding a bunch of boxes all over the place and a lot of clicks. The other interesting thing is you don't have to have the translators have access to your Drupal site. So this is a concern of some folks that they don't want to have all these people have logins to their public website. With us, we can air gap that, and all the translators can log into our translation management system, do their translations, and the only connection between that and the Drupal site itself is a secure link through an OAuth call. So a couple other examples of workflows, and this is just a few of them. It's really unlimited. You can create your own workflows as you see fit, but some common ones is doing a professional translation and then having internal reviewers. Usually when you have marketing departments globally, they'll want to do an internal review in country to make sure the messaging is right. So our system allows for that. Similarly with the machine translation, internal review, kind of like I showed with the previous slides. The machine translation, professional review, that's kind of a cost-saving measure. So that's an option to kind of cut one of the translators out of the project process, and you're basically doing a review at that point. So for the kind of medium level content, as we would see it on that content value index, that's a good alternative if you don't have a community to do your reviews. The other side of this is crowdsourcing. So say you have a knowledge base or other kind of outwardly facing community-driven data set. Crowdsourcing is a great option for that because it's already user-generated, so why not do user-generated translations? And we've actually been doing this with the LDS Church for 5 years for birth records and things like that. They have hundreds of people translating records all the time. And we also saw this in a use case with Adobe, where they had a knowledge base, and this group in China decided that they wanted to become kind of the source for all things Adobe, so they offered up their services to do crowdsourcing and build a knowledge base for them. So this is a few different examples. Like I say, it's very customizable. Be happy to talk about your particular use case and kind of going down what workflows would work best for you. So with that, I'll turn it back to Lowell to go through some use cases.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of quick ones, really. It's more of a use case than a case study in this case. But Alfresco is a client of ours with a lot of customers. So you can imagine, without some sort of a software solution, the challenges that they face keeping things localized across 180 countries. Admittedly, many of them spoke the same languages. There are clusters of the same language, but different versions: French, Algerian French, Canadian French. All of the different Spanishes, all of those sorts of things. And they worked with us. They installed our module and our TMS. And they're able to sync content very easily. They're an almost aggressively effusive reference of ours. This is sort of a quick look at some of the languages that they're deployed in. But they're a big advocate of ours, so I always like to show it because I think it's a great outcome. The folks at Acquia are also a client of ours in addition to being a partner. There are some other case studies available up on the website. Some interesting stuff. Would encourage you guys to take a look and read through some of that stuff. Read sort of some more of the use case descriptions. Those are clearly a lot more of a long form explanation of how we went about each of these projects. 2 or 3 page PDF rather than a couple of screenshots like I just showed. So that's essentially the quick tour. We're hoping that there might be some interesting questions to talk about or some plans that some of you might want to make to talk further, either in one of the vacant rooms out there or right up here. We're a little early. I mean, this presentation is like 40 minutes, so we have some time. If there are any questions that Joe and I could answer, I'm more than happy to take a stab at that.
How does the Drupal module that y'all created work with views and things, in the sense that the user might not actually ever go to the node itself? How would the translation work there with the agency?
So the content's still coming from a node, essentially, right? So you still get the translation at the node level, and then it would bubble in through the views. So and we also interact with the views module itself. So if there's any custom pieces to the view, we can catch that as well. We have seen some cases where if it's like 4 or 5 views deep, sometimes the views module itself will get stuck. So that's just something to be aware of, and that's more of a function of the views module and the Lingotek module. But we're working to help fix that.
What about other entity support besides the commons terms, for example?
So terminology we do. So that's part of the internationalization suite. So we'll pick those up along with menus and other built-in interfaces.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned field level translation. Is there a finite list of field types that are handled, or is it pretty much anything's fair game?
Pretty much everything's fair game that would make sense, right? You wouldn't translate a number, for instance.
Right.
But any of the like long text or text or
What about like a file upload field that had a description or image attached, or a link with a description text attached to it? Pretty common field types.
Yeah, so I believe we will capture that, because typically that will be like a descriptor enhancement or a file upload or something, so we'll catch that.
Okay.
And things like alt text in images, you can open up the filters in the advanced settings and catch the alt text as well. So it's real flexible. We use OpenPy's filters to parse everything. So it's kind of a 2-level parse we do. We'll catch pretty much anything that's in that content block.
How long does it take for a translation to go through either the automated, community, professional? What's the typical timing?
Well, the automated processes happen very rapidly. The variables tend to be around if it's going to be professionally translated, the size of the project, right? If it's a large project, then there are capacities that have to be built into the team that's going to be doing the professional translation. So it could be days if it's a fairly substantial professional translation project. Machine translation is obviously instantaneous. Internal translation by somebody at your company or at a client's company, or as the case may be, that's a function of how rapidly they do their work. But the automated steps to identify things that need to be translated and to get them into the process and basically in front of the people that need to do the translation are very rapid.
With the automated machine translation, that's done through your SaaS offering. It's not something that's part of the module.
Right. It's done through the SaaS offering, and we don't have. There's no point in having a proprietary translation engine, right? So we're tied into 5 or 6 of them. Google Translate, the Microsoft one. There's some other ones that people use that are kind of terminology, or particularly deep in a particular area. So that happens virtually instantaneously. I mean, lots of times in live demos, we'll round trip an entire website. If it's a fairly simple one, in like a minute, it comes back down. So it's very rapid with the machine stuff.
All right, when you install your module, how do you get your account activated?
So the account activation happens instantaneously. So once you fill out that wizard form that I showed you, your name and email address, that will auto-provision your community, and you're up and running. So
What if it doesn't? We'll talk about it after.
if it doesn't, yeah, please talk to me. It should.
Something a minute ago when we were talking about, I guess we were talking about elements other than content being translated, taxonomies and menus and all this. Something that I'm not sure was mentioned, forgive me for being redundant if it was, but it's important. In the case of content, one of the other pinch points with the manual process of sending stuff out to an agency, sending it back, frequently the formatting, what's bold, what's italic, what's underlined, which fonts, all of that stuff does not come back from the agency. So one thing that the system does when we're round tripping stuff up to our system and bringing it back, we collect all of that, all of the formatting of the content that goes up there. Once it's translated, if it's spun up on an instance of the translation platform that somebody, in Japan or something, they do the translation, they save it. Part of the process of it round tripping back down or back up this way is all of the formatting has been saved. So it all gets wrapped in all of the same formatting so that when it gets inserted back into the site, a common problem in the past has been that all of those things then, or not all of them, but a lot of them then need to be formatted again. So we do capture all of that, we rewrap the translated content, and when it gets reloaded into the site, it's in the right font and things that should have quotations around them, and all of those sorts of things that are in parenthesis, whatever it is, all of those things are maintained. So,
like Markdown, for example.
Markdown.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We maintain all that. Actually, a lot of it will emphasize, if it's in the middle of a sentence or something, we'll emphasize that to the translator to have them put the tagging around where it's supposed to be. So you don't get kind of this blank slate when you get it back and you're copying and pasting and you're like, okay, where the hell is that bolt go?
Right. And there are just so many problems with the manual process because it's never done perfectly, or it's not going to be done perfectly. So another problem that's solved is instances of markup being accidentally translated, and then when it gets reinserted and something's broken and there's half a line of HTML code in the middle of an article, or a link that doesn't work and stuff like that. So the system parses all of that stuff out, but knows right where to reinsert it when the translated content comes back around.
So say there's a website that has a lot of translations already done in multiple languages, but not all is translated. If we were to drop this module in place and flip the switch, what does the service look like? Like when I'm imagining the screenshot you showed me where there's English and Spanish, would our translations, the ones that we've already worked on, would those float up as well, or?
So that's a slightly interesting case because out of the box, what we'll do is we'll ignore the ones that are currently there because we don't want to interfere with what's currently existing. The way you get those nodes kind of into the system is what we call alignment of the translations. So we need to know, this English sentence is equivalent to this Spanish sentence in order to keep the continuous process going, and that's why we kind of ignore those at first. So we can help you do the aligning of the current material and get those into the process, and that way that would allow for edits and modifications. So that's how we approach that problem.
We have a fairly large site and we wanted to submit it to be machine readable. Is there a limit to the number of things that we can translate?
For the free version?
For the free version.
For the machine translates.
Yeah. Currently no limits.
No limits. It's, I actually kind of enjoy seeing somebody somehow break that by uploading.
Yeah.
I got one calculator production right now. It's got 20,000.
Yeah.
It's a good size site. Yeah, but no, we're actually we just got back from Utah. We were in a strategy session. I said, we should actually have like a odometer for how many free words we've given out because we're probably close to 10 million already. So.
We did. I think it's strategically from our perspective, it's a good way to get people to go ahead and install the module in a test bed and be liberal about if we just let them do it into one language, they'd be wondering, what would Chinese look like? What would simplified Chinese look like? What would Arabic look like? This right justified. They can play around and sort of see all those things, and in the case of the most sophisticated sites, it's not going to be enough. So they're going to want to begin to then experiment with some of the more customizable workflows that involve people doing parts of the translations. And and it's a nice thing to give back to the community. But mostly, we hope it'll encourage you to play with it and help us make it better and better and all that. Yes?
What about, how does Lingotek play with versioning in Drupal? I'm thinking two different versioning use cases, right? So you have translated content, which is machine translated, and then, actually we want a professional to translate that. So that leads to the question within the translation management software. And maybe it's kind of in line in that workflow, but to distinguish between automatically translated versus professional versus internally translated, I guess.
Yeah.
So we can keep track of those nodes and how they were translated.
Okay.
And then the second part of that question is, content is in different stages of workflow, and you have a versioning process potentially in a Drupal installation. Can each of those versions be translated?
So to the first question, I guess the best way of maintaining the version of where things are in the life cycle for translation is to look at that translations tab within the node, and it shows you what steps have happened, or what workflow steps have occurred. So that can give you an idea of where it is in the process, and because you can download those at any point. So if, say you wanted to download the machine translated version, and I'd say, that's good enough for this node, you could just stop there. And then as far as revision control of the nodes themselves, like say I assume you were using something like workflow moderation, or just regular revision. So in that case, that's typically tied to the published node. So if the published node changes, or depending on how you set up our module to work with workflow moderation, you can also set it up for, I kind of recommend setting a stage that says each translation. That way if a rev goes through, it's published, that will be in line, and then the next rev coming through, goes to that each translation phase, and that kind of keeps everything in sync. And then once that one gets promoted to published, then it would all fall in line. As with anything, we're still tweaking the workflow piece, but the other side to that too is I just want to mention the Drupal module itself is full open source on Drupal.org. So if you do find some kind of corner cases or things that you need to have for your particular install, feel free to modify that and you can contribute that. So.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank all of you for your time. We've got some time if any of you guys want to talk up here at the front about any specific projects. If not, we'll be back down there in the exhibit hall for another couple of hours, and you can visit with us there. But we appreciate your interest, and would love to talk to you about your projects or about whatever the reason is that you're here. So thank you very much.